Hi everyone, it's Mimi, and today I'm going to be talking about my 2020 statistics, my favorite books from 2020, and my goals for 2021. I used Cawpile. It's a spreadsheet that the Book Roast made. I definitely highly recommend you check out that video and download this if you want to see your statistics for the end of the month with minimum effort. I made graphs previously, but then I decided to just do this because her graphs are very visually pleasing. Okay, so the first graph that outputs is books read per month, and so this is the graph for that. You can see that I really started reading more books when college ended at the end of June. The end of October, the Shadowlands expansion from World of Warcraft just came out, and I was spending more of my time playing video games than reading. For pages read, this is the graph for that. Pretty similar, so we don't really have to get into it. I read across 7 different genres, a decent amount of nonfiction, lots of contemporary and fantasy. Total 7 different genres and 56 books. And now we can talk about my favorite books from 2020 out of those 56. My favorite book of 2020 is If on a Winter's Night, A Traveler by Italo Calvino. I really loved this because the passages constantly blew me away with the beautiful prose, the structure, and the message behind this book. It's unlike anything else. It's a postmodernist meta-narrative, so the structure is also really unique, and each chapter alternates between incipits of stories and then the main plot, which may sound a little confusing, but it really works together beautifully. The main themes that I took away from this were politics, censorship, free will, institutional education, and apocrypha. My second favorite book of 2020 is Why Nations Fail, and I was recommended this book twice by 2 people that I have a very high opinion of. The authors, Daron Acemoglu and James Robinson, are an economist and a historian, so you definitely get a wealth of historical and economic research and evidence to back their claims up. Their main claim is that there needs to be inclusive economic institutions and policies. It really shaped the way that I think about politics and economics and the intersection of them. I think that this is great for augmenting your understanding of how the world works. The third book that I'm going to be talking about is Evicted by Matthew Desmond, and Goodreads says that in Evicted, Matthew Desmond follows 8 families in Milwaukee as they struggle to keep a roof over their heads. Evicted transforms our understanding of poverty and economic exploitation while providing fresh ideas for solving one of 21st century America's most devastating problems. Its unforgettable scenes of hope and loss remind us of the centrality of home, without which nothing else is possible. So I agree with the description that Goodreads has completely. I think that Matthew Desmond really portrayed these families with such a real and clear lens, and it really made you feel for the families. And between these case studies, he also interweaved statistics that he found through his survey work, I believe. He just did a great job with that work. I think it just shows how prevalent this issue is and how it affects all different areas of life and not just like where you live. It has a bunch of mental health problems, developmental issues for children, and it makes it more likely for you to not be able to keep a job. It also shows the racial disparity between Black people and how discriminated against they are to get housing, and also for families too. The fourth book that I'm going to be talking about is Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. Gifty is a 5th-year candidate in neuroscience at Stanford School of Medicine, studying reward-seeking behavior in mice and the neural circuits of depression and addiction. Her brother Nana is a gifted high school athlete who died of a heroin overdose after a knee injury. Her suicidal mother is living in her bed. Gifty is determined to discover the scientific basis for suffering. She finds herself hungering for her childhood faith. Transcendent Kingdom is a deeply moving portrait of a family of Ghanaian immigrants ravaged by depression and addiction and grief. What I especially liked about this book is that it explored the dichotomy between science and religion. I grew up with a religious background, and I am in the field of neuroscience right now, so this book definitely spoke to me on both fronts. I also liked how this book portrayed different cultures and how different cultures approach religion and mental health. So overall, I thought the writing was incredible. I loved the characters, the development, the dynamics, and I absolutely loved the meaning and the purpose of Yaa Gyasi's writing in this. The 5th book is Notes from Underground, and I guess I have to put this in here because that's my username, or where I got my username from. Notes from Underground is by Dostoevsky, and it's a first-person polemical memoir of an anti-hero who oscillates between a romantic, appreciating love and the sublime, and then an angry, lone, mentally ill extremist. Through this narrative, Dostoevsky asserts that a crystal palace is a technologically advanced utopia or ideal socialist society. Because even if there are laws of nature or mathematical equations that define the truth or actions, people will abandon reason to practice free will. Quote, man is fated away, it is only because he is beholden to laws of nature like science or mathematics. 2 + 2 = 4, and this holds true whether we like it or not. He is willing to suffer, destroy, and abandon reason, all for the sake of his own freedom. I think the main reason why I love this book so much is because of the concepts that Dostoevsky unpacks through the short book. It's like about 150 pages, so might as well read it. Sixth book, and the final book that I'm going to be talking about is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. 1714, in a moment of desperation, a young woman makes a Faustian bargain to live forever and is cursed to be forgotten by everyone she meets. But everything changes after nearly 300 years. Addie stumbles across a young man in a hidden bookstore and he remembers her name. The enjoyment factor is definitely why this is one of my favorite books from this year. I think the description for this is actually a little bit misleading because it seems like more of a historical fiction novel, but I would say that it's more of a fantasy novel. So if you like fantastical elements, you probably like this book a little bit more. I really liked how this book explored contrasting themes, the new and old, living forever and not leaving a mark, and how a typical Faustian deal, patrons of art and creator of art. But I think the theme and message from this book that touched me the most and is the reason why this book is one of my favorites from this year is the exploration of inevitability of death. So that's definitely a trigger warning. Trigger warnings for this book are death, starvation, payment of sexual acts, recreational and self-medicating drug use, emotional manipulation, attempted suicide, depression, and violence. So those were my favorite books for 2020. I guess now we can go into my goals for 2021. My first goal is to read 52 books. I completed that this year with about half the year. So I think this is an achievable goal even with applying to grad school and taking the GRE and working full-time and taking college classes. My second goal is to use a Goodreads alternative because Goodreads is owned by Amazon. I do have a Storygraph account, but I haven't really used it much. This year I'm hoping to change my habit to using Storygraph instead of Goodreads. The third is to write more thoughts about books and to think more critically while I'm reading. I think that thinking critically makes me appreciate books more and in turn makes me enjoy reading more. My fourth goal is to have more buddy reads or interact more on Bookstagram, not necessarily be on more, but I want to meet more cool people. I met some really lovely people at the end of this year. I just love hearing their thoughts and new perspective towards books or just reading in general. And the fifth goal is to read from a wide variety or range. This can be different types of books. This can be different identities of the protagonists in the books or different identities for the authors. I also want to read more own voices, and I think Bookstagram and BookTube in general really has expanded my view for this. I have been exposed to so many different authors and so many different books that I wasn't exposed to previously. I'm really excited to read my exponentially increasing TBR. I hope you like this video of my 2020 stats and favorite books. So thanks for watching.